was 19 when I started babysitting for a family that lived about 15 minutes from my house. They had 2 kids, a 6-year-old girl named Lily and a 4-year-old boy named Ethan. I'd babysat for them several times before, so I already knew the routine. The parents usually went out for dinner on Friday nights, and I would come over around 7, make sure the kids ate, watch a movie with them, and put them to bed. Nothing had ever gone wrong. That night was no different. At least that's what I thought. The parents left around 7:30. Before leaving, the mother reminded me that Lily sometimes had trouble falling asleep. "Just leave her bedroom door open," she said. I told her it wasn't a problem. After they left, everything was completely normal. The kids ate pizza, we watched a movie. Ethan fell asleep on the couch before the movie was even halfway over. Around 9:30, I carried him upstairs and put him in bed. Then I went to check on Lily. She was sitting on her bed looking toward the window. "Everything okay?" She nodded. Then she asked, "Did you see that man?" I thought she was talking about someone in the movie. "What man?" She pointed toward the window. "Outside." I walked over and looked through the curtains. There was nothing there, just the backyard. I smiled. "There's nobody outside." She looked at me. "Yes, there is." I opened the curtains completely. The backyard was empty. "See?" She didn't answer. I closed the curtains again. "Maybe you saw a neighbor." She shook her head. "He was standing by the fence." I asked her what he looked like. She said she didn't know. I asked if he was wearing a hat. She said no. Then she said something that made me pause. He was looking at my window. I didn't want to scare her, so I told her it was probably nothing. Maybe it was a neighbor. Maybe it was a shadow. Maybe she had imagined it. She seemed satisfied with that answer. I went downstairs. For the next hour, everything was quiet. Then, around 11, I heard something outside. A light scratching sound. I muted the television. I listened. Nothing. Then it happened again. Scratch, pause, scratch. I walked into the kitchen. The back door had a large glass window. I looked outside. Nothing. I turned on the backyard light. Still nothing. I stood there for a few seconds, then went back to the living room. I convinced myself it was probably a branch moving against the fence. A few minutes later, I heard footsteps upstairs. I immediately stood up. "Lily?" No answer. I walked halfway up the stairs. Then Lily appeared at the top. She was holding her blanket. "What's wrong?" She looked at me. "He's back." My stomach tightened. "Who?" "The man." I looked behind her. "What man?" "The one outside." I went upstairs. Lily pointed toward her bedroom window. I opened the curtains. Nothing. But this time I noticed something. The window was slightly open. I knew I hadn't opened it. "Lily, did you do this?" She shook her head. "No." I closed the window and locked it. Then I checked the rest of the room. Nothing. I told her to come downstairs with me. She didn't argue. We sat together in the living room. I tried calling her parents. No answer. Then, suddenly, we heard the back door handle move. I looked toward the kitchen. The handle moved again. Slowly, down, then back up. Lily grabbed my arm. "Don't go," I whispered. "Stay here." I walked toward the kitchen. I didn't want to open the back door. I just wanted to see if someone was outside. I turned on the light. Nobody was there. But then I noticed something on the patio. Mud. There were 2 muddy footprints right outside the back door. I froze. I hadn't seen them earlier. I slowly backed away. Then I heard something from outside. A footstep. I looked through the glass. At first I saw nothing. Then a person stepped into the light. A man. He was standing only a few feet from the door. I couldn't see his face clearly, but I could see him looking directly at me. I grabbed Lily. We ran to the front door. I unlocked it. We ran outside. I didn't even stop to put on shoes. We went to the neighbor's house and started banging on the door. The police arrived about 10 minutes later. They searched the property. They found no one. But they found muddy footprints leading from the fence to the back door. They also discovered that one of the basement windows had been left unlocked. The police never found the man. But a few weeks later, they arrested someone nearby for trespassing. They couldn't prove it was the same person. The thing I still think about is Lily, because she saw him before I did. And she was right about one thing. He wasn't just walking by. He had been standing there, watching her bedroom window. And I still wonder how long he had been there before I arrived. Story 2. The voice from upstairs. The second story happened when I was 22. I was babysitting two brothers, Jake and Tyler. They were 8 and 5. Their parents lived in an old 2-story house on a quiet street. I'd only babysat for them twice before. The house was old but comfortable. That night, their parents left around 8. They told me they'd be home before midnight. The boys were supposed to be in bed by 9:30. Everything was normal. We played a board game. They watched television. At 9:30, I took them upstairs. Tyler went into his bedroom. Jake went into his. I went downstairs. About 20 minutes later, I heard footsteps upstairs. I assumed one of the boys was getting out of bed. Jake? No answer. I continued watching television. Then I heard the footsteps again. This time, they sounded heavier. Slow. One step at a time. I stood up. Guys? Nothing. I walked toward the stairs. Before I could reach them, Jake appeared. He was standing at the top. What's wrong? He looked confused. Nothing. Did you come downstairs? No. I looked behind him. Then what was that? He shrugged. I assumed it was Tyler. I went upstairs. Tyler was asleep. I checked his room. Everything was fine. I went back downstairs. About 10 minutes later, I heard something else. A voice. It sounded like someone whispering. I couldn't make out the words. I turned off the television. I listened. Nothing. Then I heard it again. This time I was sure someone was talking upstairs. I stood up. Jake? No response. I walked toward the stairs. Then Jake shouted from upstairs, "Don't come up." I froze. Why? There was a long pause. Then he said, "Because there's someone here." My heart immediately started beating faster. I walked up 2 steps. "What do you mean?" Jake whispered. "I heard him." "Who?" "The man." I stopped. "Where is he?" Jake pointed toward the hallway. "He's in Tyler's room." I immediately grabbed Jake and pulled him downstairs. We went into the kitchen. I locked the door between the kitchen and the garage. Then I called the police. While I was talking to the dispatcher, I heard something upstairs. A door opening. I looked toward the ceiling. The dispatcher asked me if I could safely leave the house. I said yes. I grabbed both boys. We ran out the front door. We went across the street to a neighbor's house. The police arrived quickly. They searched the entire house. At first, they found nothing. Then one officer called me inside. He showed me the upstairs hallway. There was a closet near Tyler's bedroom. The door was slightly open. Inside the closet, they found a man's backpack. It didn't belong to anyone in the family. The police searched it. There were several items inside. A flashlight, food, a phone charger, and a pair of gloves. The police believed someone had been hiding inside the house, but they couldn't find him. Then they checked the attic. There was a small access door in the ceiling. It was open. The officer climbed up. A few seconds later, he came back down. He said there were fresh footprints in the dust. Someone had been up there recently. The police searched the neighborhood but never found anyone. The parents came home around midnight. They were completely shocked. They had no idea how someone could have entered the house. The police eventually discovered that the garage door had a broken lock. Someone could have entered through the garage and hidden upstairs. What scares me most is that I was downstairs for almost 2 hours. The entire time, I thought the boys were the only people upstairs, but someone else may have been there. And when I heard those footsteps, I thought it was one of the kids. I still remember Jake telling me, "Don't come up." At the time, I thought he was scared. Now I think he may have been the only person in that house who understood how serious the situation really was. Story 3. Someone was in the closet. The third story happened during my first year of college. I was 20 years old and babysitting for a family that lived in a large house outside the city. They had one child, a 6-year-old boy named Ben. His parents hired me to watch him for a few hours while they went to a wedding. They said they'd probably be home around 11. The house was much bigger than the other homes I'd babysat in. It had 4 bedrooms, a basement, and a large garage. When the parents left, they gave me a quick tour. Then they walked out. Ben and I watched cartoons. Around 8, we ate dinner. Everything was completely normal. At 9, Ben started getting tired. I took him upstairs. He brushed his teeth. Then he got into bed. I turned off the light. As I was leaving, he said, "Can you check the closet?" I looked at the closet. "Why?" "Just check." I opened the door. Nothing. A few jackets, some boxes. I looked behind the clothes. Nothing. I smiled. "See? Nothing." Ben looked at me. "Okay." I left the door open, then I went downstairs. About 30 minutes later, I heard a loud noise. Bang. I looked toward the ceiling, then I heard another sound. Something falling. I called upstairs. "Ben?" No answer. I went upstairs. Ben was sitting in bed. His eyes were open. "Did you hear that?" He nodded. "Was it your closet?" He shook his head, then he whispered, "Someone is in there." I looked toward the closet. The door was open. I walked over. Nothing. I turned on the light. I checked everything. Nobody. I told Ben it was probably something falling. He didn't believe me. I went back downstairs, but I didn't feel comfortable anymore. I kept listening. A few minutes later, I heard a sound from upstairs. A small cough. I froze. I turned off the television. I listened. Nothing. Then another cough. This time, I knew it came from upstairs. I grabbed my phone. I called the parents. No answer. I called again. Still nothing. I went upstairs. Ben was still in bed. "Did you cough?" He shook his head. "No." I stared at the closet. The door was closed. I walked toward it. I stopped a few feet away. "Ben?" "Yes." "Did you close the closet?" "No." I felt a chill go through me. I didn't open it. Instead, I grabbed Ben. I carried him downstairs. We went into the kitchen. I locked the doors. Then I called 911. While I was speaking to the dispatcher, I heard something, a door opening upstairs. I looked toward the staircase. I could hear footsteps slowly moving across the floor. Someone was walking around upstairs. The dispatcher told me to leave the house if I could do so safely. I grabbed Ben. We ran out through the front door. We went to the neighbor's house. The police arrived within minutes. They entered the house. A few minutes later, they came back outside. One officer asked me, "Did you see anyone upstairs?" I said no. Then he asked, "Did you notice anything unusual about the closet?" I told him about the sounds. He looked at me, then he explained. The closet had a small opening behind the clothes. It led into a narrow storage space between the walls. Someone could hide there. The police found a blanket, a bottle of water, and food wrappers. Someone had been hiding inside that space. The officer told me something else. There were footprints on the floor. They came out of the closet, and they led toward Ben's bedroom. I asked him if the person had been inside the house the entire time. He said they didn't know, but they believed the person had been there for at least several hours, possibly longer. They searched the property. They couldn't find anyone. But the police later discovered that the family's garage had been left unlocked. The person may have entered through there. I never found out who it was. I never found out if they had been watching me or if they had been watching Ben. But I still remember the first thing Ben asked me that night. "Can you check the closet?" At the time, I thought he was just being a kid. Maybe he was afraid of the dark. Maybe he'd heard something and imagined the rest. But now I wonder if he had heard something before I ever went upstairs. Maybe he knew someone was there. Maybe the person had been moving around inside that closet while I was downstairs. And the worst part is, I had opened that closet myself. I had stood only a few feet away from where someone was hiding. I looked inside. I saw nothing. And whoever was in there was close enough to hear me talking to Ben, close enough to know exactly where we were. That's what I think about whenever I remember that night. Not the police, not the footsteps, not even the fact that someone had been hiding in the house. It's the thought that for a few minutes, I was standing directly in front of that closet, and I had absolutely no idea that someone was standing on the other side